Do you want to know about imposter syndrome? 2 videos on this one. Here's part 1. Hi there, and welcome back to Ask Dr. Syra, the show where I answer your questions about personal growth, mental health, and relationships. Today's question comes from Rihanna. Now, this is an amazing question. I'm surprised nobody's asked me this yet until now. And we're going to do a deep dive on this. So this is actually going to be a 2-part video because otherwise it would be way too long. And this is part 1. Here we go. Here's the question. So Rihanna says, I'm starting a new job and I'm excited about it, but also nervous. It's a hybrid work situation and I'm worried about how I'm going to get to know people going in only twice a week. It's also a different role for me. Can you talk about imposter syndrome? Starting a new job, excited, nervous, hybrid work situation. How am I going to get to know people? New role. Can you talk about imposter syndrome? So I wasn't sure what to do with this question because I'm like, there's so many things I can tell you about on all those other pieces. But that final question of, can you talk about imposter syndrome? That's the part I'm going to really focus in on because there's so much to say. So imposter syndrome. Okay, we're going to do this in 2 parts. So today we're going to talk about what is imposter syndrome and kind of really go into a deep dive. In the next video, we're going to talk about what do you do if you have imposter syndrome? How do you deal with it? Okay, so you've probably heard that term by now. It's kind of mainstream, imposter syndrome. And usually you think of, okay, imposter syndrome is when you feel like a fraud. To keep it really simple, you feel like a fraud. And I did a little bit of like investigation into the imposter syndrome when I got this question. And I learned that the term came about in the 1970s. And what was happening was researchers were finding that women, so high achieving professional women, were talking to their therapists about self-doubt, incompetence, and fear of not faring well in the future. Like it seemed to be coming up compared to their male counterparts. Like they're like, I don't know if I'll be able to do this, but Matt can do that or whatever. And it just kept coming up in a lot of circles, and psychologists got really fascinated about this and did some research on it and found that actually, yes, there were large groups of high achieving women who were, newly into the workforce in the last maybe 10 or 15 years and just feeling like frauds. And with more research, with more time came more research, and they realized that this is for men and women. There are people of all genders who are experiencing imposter syndrome. So that's the history of the term imposter syndrome. There's lots of people who kind of self-professed experts. One that I found really interesting and kind of really in alignment with the kinds of things that we talk about is Dr. Valerie Young. And she actually talks about these different, she calls them types of imposter syndrome. I think this really lines up well with our parts work that we talk about, right? That there's like different parts of us and sometimes they need different things and we get stuck in roles. And so it really aligned with that. So I wanted to share with you her types of imposter syndrome. And I'll tell you the name and then I'll kind of go a little bit into detail for each one. So there are, according to Dr. Valerie Young, there are 5 types in the imposter syndrome. So the first is the perfectionist, right? So the perfectionist is someone who wants things done a certain way, and they need things to be really precise. They have very, very high standards, and they can't really let themselves rest until they feel like it's perfect. It's exactly the way that they want it to be, right? And so what the perfectionist runs into is nothing's ever good enough for them, right? And so they're coming in with this idea of things have to be perfection, but then things are not perfect, and so they feel like a fraud. Okay, so that's the first one, which is the perfectionist. The second one is the superhuman. And this is the person who thinks, well, if I just do more, then it'll be better, right? So this is the person who sometimes falls into work addiction, right? Or what we call workaholism, where you just spend so much time trying to get the task done or right or whatever. It's like And I can also do that, and I can also do my home life, and I can also do my this life, and I can also, and so it's a superhuman, where I can do it all. And so really, really putting 100,000,000% in everything that we do. Now, this is the kind of person who I see in my burnout courses. That's where that lands you. Superhuman mindset will land you in burnout because it's not sustainable, right? You can do it for maybe months, even maybe years, but at some point the system breaks down because a lot of what the superhumans are doing is sort of look outside, right? It's about outside themselves. It's about other people. It's about their job. It's not really as much about their own internal world. Sometimes it is, but often it's not. And so the superhuman person neglects their own needs and they get pulled into that work addiction, unfortunately. So that's the second type. The third type is what she calls the natural genius. So that's someone who wants to get it right the first time, right? They have this thing where they're just good at things and they don't really have to try at things. And so if they're not good at it right away, they're really like, it throws them off like big time. So, in the question, it's like, it's a different role for me, right? It's a different role for me. And it's like, okay, so this is your first time doing something. And if we have that imposter syndrome and that part that's the natural genius, then, unless it's easy for you right away, you're not going to try it, or you're going to feel really bad about yourself when you do try it. So that's the downside of the natural genius. I can relate to that one, in that, I don't know where it probably comes from, my like academic career, of like A's or whatever, but like getting it easy and getting it right. And so you have to kind of like shift when things are not easy, and really, really feeling like a fraud when things are not easy for me. So yeah, I know that one. The next one is the soloist. She calls the soloist. That's the person who can just do it all on their own. They don't need any help. They kind of like get in, gear down, and just go. And again, this is another person who shows up in burnout. That's where that lands, because part of it is that we're social mammals, right? We're designed to actually work in groups and of course do our individual, whatever, but we get so much when we work in groups. And the soloist is like, well, they're not going to get it right anyway. I'll just do it my way and myself. And again, can feel like a fraud because now all the responsibility is on me. If anything goes wrong, I'm the only one to blame because I was the only one involved in this, right? So just to be another watch for, to be careful not to slip into that soloist role. And then there's the expert. The expert, that's the person who actually does have a lot of knowledge, but feels like they don't know enough about whatever particular topic. So I remember, what was it that I was doing? I was speaking. Oh yeah, my first talk that I gave for youth, right, for teenagers. Now I didn't like deeply study teenage mental health, but a mom of somebody asked me and said, could you talk to parents about their teenagers and what's going on with their teenagers? And so like I just like delved into the research. I talked to my colleagues. I got prepared, but because it wasn't a subject that was natural to me, I felt like a fraud, like absolutely imposter syndrome. That was like years ago, and then once I was done that first one, feeling like a fraud, then I got more and more confident, as not because my knowledge grew, but because of my confidence grew. The knowledge was there. The information was there. It was that I didn't feel like it was enough information, right? And so the problem with having that, the expert mindset, is that we spend a lot of time learning and try to avoid engaging until we know everything about the subject, right? Which means that sometimes you don't actually engage with people the way that you could be because you're worried that you don't know everything there is to know about that subject. And so in the next session, we'll talk about, what to do about the imposter syndrome and different strategies that you can use. As I've been telling you the different types, you may relate to more than one, and that's really natural. Dr. Valerie Young says it's very natural to have more than one imposter type, if you're finding yourself in imposter syndrome. So I'm going to say them again. There's the perfectionist, the superhuman, the natural genius, the soloist, and the expert. And Imposter syndrome being that self-doubt, that feeling of incompetence, that feeling of maybe being found out because you're not what you say you are. One of my teachers, Dr. Chuck Spezzano, he talks about how imposter syndrome shows up when we're ready to take the next step in leadership. So it's actually the ego's way of slowing us down and saying, no, you're not ready for that. Look, you're a fraud. You don't actually know what you're talking about. They're going to find out that you. So it's a way to keep us safe, because that's the ego's job. Its job is to keep us safe and keep things predictable. And so when we're making a change or we're stepping out in a new way, that imposter syndrome will come. It's really natural. So there's nothing wrong with you if you have imposter syndrome from time to time. It will come in waves probably throughout our lives. Maybe hopefully as we get older and into our like 80s, we don't have it anymore. I don't know, maybe. Those who are 80 and over, please let me know in the comments. Do you still face imposter syndrome? And yeah, I think that's it for this video. And then watch out next week for the next one. If you have a question that you want some guidance on, please send me an email and make sure to like and subscribe to the channel so then you know when these are coming out. And I will see you next time. Bye.